Welcome to Tonetalks. Welcome to Tonetalks. Welcome to Tonetalks.
So let's be clear. Jeff Bezos by himself is worth $211 billion. Black America together, according to the Federal Reserve, has $270 billion in private business wealth. The whole race, 46 million people, including black immigrants. If you just looked at ADOS, that number probably falls below just Jeff Bezos' wealth. ADOS people being American descendants of slavery that built America and have no wealth, and largely now are telling me and Yvette Carnell and other folks like us that they don't need reparations. One man used a family gift that would be the equivalent of $1 million today to start Amazon. Told his family that there was a 70% chance that he would lose it in Bezos. And now he has the equivalent wealth of a whole sector of what Black America has in terms of private business. This is such a big problem that I don't even think that black folks nor white folks can even wrap their head around what I'm saying. But I'll make it clear in this video. You got a white America worth $115 trillion, only 20% of it being pensions, $23 trillion. And you got a black America worth $6.33 trillion, and nearly 41% of it is pensions. 41%, with another 35% of it being real estate, primarily in the hands of boomer retirees. I need everybody to understand the gravity of what I'm saying. In this video, I'll explain why all of it tells us that black folks better wake up to the national discussion around reparative justice, or they will not only be left behind, but might not make it at all economically. This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks. I want to have a discussion about some of the stuff we're seeing in the media. I think a lot of people are talking around race and wealth, but think they're talking about it. In many ways, many of the things in the media aren't cutting to the core of how catastrophic the situation is, how the level of the gravity of the moment. And I just want to kind of get to it, and you see it how you see it. So they announced yesterday that Jeff Bezos is now worth $211 billion, richest man in the history of the world. Essentially, I think people don't really know where to place that. We've had a culture since the early 80s, from the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous to MTV Cribs to hip hop to even now, NBA basketball and the Decadent Veil, that has celebrated wealth. So black folks don't really understand where they place inside of that. Last week I did a show for about an hour where I showed you guys the state of black wealth. I really recommend you watch that full 50-minute show. But essentially, I just want to frame the news that's coming out in regard to everyone from a retailer to Nikole Hannah-Jones in context of what is really at the core of what we should be talking about at this moment. And you can leave your comments below. So, the tweet that I have that kind of starts this framing is, does Black America understand what I am telling them? Look, the Federal Reserve chart says all of Black America has $270 billion in private business. Jeff Bezos by himself is worth $211 billion. None of what black folks are talking about matters. This is the whole ball game. Hashtag ADOS. So what I'm contextualizing is giving you is a ruler, because this is not just some speculative personal idea of where things place. I'm giving you a ruler to understand how not infinitesimally small black wealth is, how it really just doesn't exist in the context of how you created identity, or many of you created identity, I have to say. And when I say that, I mean you frame things around Disney trips. And when I say that, I look around and I see people framing things like black wealth in the state of it doesn't play like a role at the level that it does, basically. And as a result, it's just almost like financial craze going on in some ways. We start looking at this thing and we start understanding it based on the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances that gives us a picture. into the state of white wealth and the state of black wealth. In the last video, I went into it in larger context. In this video, I will focus down on a couple key points as I start to move into Marie Taylor and Nikole Hannah-Jones and philanthropic corporate giving. But before I do that, I need you to understand what this chart actually is in numbers. It's a chart that's actually, if you look at the top of the categories under the race, white, black, Hispanic, other, it says U.S. trillions. So the main number is actually in trillions. What that means is that the number after the decimal is hundreds of billions. The number after the first number in the decimal is tens of billions. So you have white people having about $29.98 trillion in corporate equities and mutual funds, and black folks having 0.37. But what that actually is white folks having $29.98 trillion in corporate equities and mutual funds, and black folks having $370 billion. The reason these numbers start to get really important is when you have one man in Bezos worth $211 billion. When you move down to private business, that's those businesses, everything from the size of Cargill company that gives McDonald's its eggs, that just companies that have just decided not to go public yet, to your small businesses. White folks have $11.330 billion worth of private business. Black America has $270 billion. That's that 0.27. So Jeff Bezos by himself is worth $211 billion. And all of black America, slavery, Jim Crow, 46 million people that built America, that have the dreams and hopes and American dream goals and college debt and $1 million aspirations, are worth only $270 billion in business, in private business. People will say to me like that they kind of understood this before. You can't. Many people can't stay the same person that they are. If you have to really understand how limiting that is. And one of the things that I think makes it hard for us to see how limiting it is that we love empowerment over politics. So because we don't understand, that means that we don't exist in terms of private business, really. And what that means in terms of politics and what you need to do, we actually think we can exist while these numbers exist. What these numbers are saying is that you don't exist. Like, these aren't like if-then. These numbers are saying what's in your pockets. 46 million people, $270 billion. One man, $211 billion. Now, I need everybody to understand who Jeff Bezos is. I talked about this in the report I did, what we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap, which I covered on Fortune magazine, did this with several economists. What you see is that he actually is a product of multi-generational favor. He started his company from a gift from his parents to start Amazon. He then told them that, I believe it was a 70% chance he would lose the money. They gave him $300,000 in the 90s. Now, they gave him $300,000, which is the equivalent. It's insane. It's insane to have somebody give you $300,000 in liquid wealth to start this risky Amazon and understand that it's a 70% chance you'll lose it. And I think all of that has to be contextualized against the reality that we talked about this last video. White America in 1989 has $22 trillion. White America today, we went over the last video, but white America now has $114.97 trillion. If you add these categories together, real estate, consumer durables, corporate equities, pension, entitlements, private business, other assets, white America has $114.97 trillion. Black America has about 6.33, $6.330 trillion altogether. But 2.62 of that is pensions, pretty much. That's 40% of that number. So 40% of that number, that small number, is pensions. 40% of that 6.33. Black America better get their head around what's going on and what this means. Because either you're going to temper down your goals, you're going to do some politics, or you in for a lot of fighting in your household. I'm just trying to give you the layout. This ain't something that you should not know. You should know this already as a grown adult in America. But part of the reason you don't know it is because you're doing empowerment. You running around just plugging into anything that allows you to beat your chest without opening that up and seeing whether it's chest beatable. Let's talk about it. So when you look at this chart, 40% of our wealth is pensions. White America has 23.22 in pensions. That is 20% of 114.97. So they have almost still $100 trillion even when you take out their pensions. You take out our pensions, we got like $2 trillion left, and still that's pretty much the boomer real estate, 1.74. Part of the reason you can't see it though, focus on the chart, is the number that is nearly the closest in this chart is the 0.40. The number that's the closest is the 0.40 that blacks have in consumer durables to the 4.88 that white people have. So white people, first of all, almost have consumer durables being the family car, the blankets, the couch, the TV. White people have. And for those people that need context from a numbers perspective because they get lost, it's not about the raw number of white people, it's about households. Roughly speaking, there's about 83 million white homes in America. And there's 20 million black ones. That is a 1-to-4 ratio. 6.33 trillion is not 1-to-4 with 115 trillion. I need you to understand that. So black America should be somewhere around probably like $30 trillion if you were to say equivalent to the 115 that whites have, but really whites should be come down as a result of a reparative justice movement. So that, you know, black people should be at 28 to 30 trillion and whites should be at 115, but if we actually did it, probably we should be at 22 and they should be at like 88 or 90 trillion. But where we're at right now is important. We're at $114.97 trillion in white households. 83 million white households and 20 million black households have 6.33, with 40% of that being pensions. But the reason we can't see it is because the closest category is consumer durables, the clothes, TV, and couches. But look at this. White America has $4.88 trillion. $4.880 billion in just consumer durables. So they almost have the same amount of wealth just in their clothes, TVs, and couches than we have overall. But part of the reason we can't see it because the closest category is the clothes, TVs, and couches. So we got a TV, they got a TV. We got the Target blanket, they got the Pottery Barn blanket. We both go to college. They don't got student debt, we got student debt, but we both went. We both got couches. Ours is Ashley's, theirs is Pottery Barn or somewhere else. Handmade. I need you to see that the masterful job of consumption goods has made it so black folks can't see that Jeff Bezos now is worth $211 billion, while all of black America has $270 billion in private business. Black America will sit around talking about business, not know one person with 100 employees. One black person, Adolph's black person. I mean, American descendants of slavery. Black people will talk about all the business opportunities and not know one Adolph's black person with 100 employees. And that ain't a lot of employees. Bezos hits wealth record of $211 billion. The world's richest man reached a record $211 billion in net worth Tuesday after Amazon.com shares rose 4.7% after the Pentagon announced it was canceling a cloud computing contract with rival Microsoft. The rally raised Bezos' fortune by $8.4 billion, according to Bloomberg's Billionaires Index. The last time anyone in the Bloomberg Index near this amount was in January when Tesla's Elon Musk briefly hit $210 billion. Bezos' record haul is even greater than during a 2020 Amazon stock surge when his net worth topped out at $206.9 billion as the pandemic turbocharged the company's prices. I need you to see what I'm saying, because if you don't see this, then you can't see the next step. People across the internet are talking around issues. Let me make it simple. 83 million white homes have nearly $5 trillion in consumer goods alone, and $115 trillion overall. All of Black America, 20 million homes, are worth $6.3 trillion, with nearly half of it being pensions. When I say black wealth doesn't exist, it does not exist in any kind of real numbers. And then even the little amount that it does exist is concentrated in a black elite that are kind of just playing this role of covering it all up, whether they know it or not. We never did the politics to demand reparative justice, to demand access, to demand ownership. And now what we're doing is celebrating empowerment stuff. Make us feel good. White America has nearly the same amount in just clothes, TVs, and couches as Black America has overall. Look at this. Corporate equities and mutual funds and shares has 29.98. When you look over at other assets, that's 20.93, and there might be another $5-7 trillion in that white people have. That's where the bank account money is. So they might have almost $40 trillion liquid, $50 trillion liquid in just liquid wealth. And you look over at Black America, pretty much our liquid wealth would be the 30.37 in the corporate equities and mutual fund stocks and mutual funds that we can liquidate easily. And some portion of this 0.93 in other assets, let's just say that that's another 300, 400 billion. We might have $800 billion liquid in the whole Rex. 46 million people, 20 million homes. Again, there's 83 million white homes, 1-to-4 ratio. People will say, you can't be concerned with what white people have. Well, you tell that to your kid that has to pay for college, and they pay the same Sally Mae, same Navient as anyone else. You tell that to your kid when they go to Rouse or Kroger's to shop, that we don't got to be concerned because the prices are what they are in America. And part of what's happening is the reason we can't see it is this. I'm not saying people's personal careers don't matter at some level, but when wealth is this calcified, you have real issues of racial survival in front of you that are more pressing. Issues that require politics for collective uplift over sensational empowerment topics. I believe part of the reason that this stuff resonates is it makes black people feel like they've arrived. I believe that this is part of the decadent veil, sensationalized. It's made to feel like black people somehow gathered all of these millions of dollars and gave it to Nikole Hannah-Jones so she could start that school. That's Ford Foundation. Billionaire philanthropy. I will get into that in a second. You have white capital giving a black college money so that it can create our next journalists. We own no black media, really. So they're going to go work at a Washington Post that is owned by who? Jeff Bezos. He bought it in 2013. We'll go over that in a second. But in addition, you now have your black journalists not necessarily beholden, but created out of white philanthropic charity. What kind of journalism do you think they produce after that? I'm saying this to you because I would hope that people understand part of the project. One of the things that everybody has to start looking at is how and where money moves and everything like that. When you look at these foundations, like the Ford Foundation, you have ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, being attacked by the Harvard Kennedy School, the school there attacking us, but then the Ford Foundation has donated to that school. To me, if you're Nikole Hannah-Jones or anyone else, you have to demand, no, there's not going to be any attacks on black politics, on black folks that are trying to do reparative justice movement, or I'm going to stand here as well. But we don't even understand the lay of the land in terms of economics, so we just do anything. Black journalism should not be the product of white philanthrocapitalism, reliant on being hired by people like Bezos that own the Washington Post because there is no black media. So we didn't control who the production of black journalists. I don't want to hear about Howard as a school. I want to hear about those donors who gave money to Howard to start this journalistic program. Then we don't have black media because of a lack of investment from our own government, from a lack of reparative justice for these black journalists to go into, and then they're beholden to the people that started the school, whether they know it or not, because those are the people that funded their education. Let's talk about Maria Taylor first. Maria Taylor. A disparaging video prompts explosive fallout within ESPN, and comments still rippling through the network. The reporter, Rachel Nichols, who is white, said Maria Taylor, who is black, earned the job to host 2020 NBA Finals coverage because ESPN was feeling pressure on diversity. So the argument goes that Black Lives Matter was happening, and they was trying to give people jobs and commercials, particularly African American women. And they gave Maria Taylor a job that way, and that's what the whole argument is. We sitting here in an era, in a moment, where many black folks don't have money to basically eat, facing eviction. And the main news that sucks the air out of the room, because that's the first thing you have to be honest, because it does suck the air out of the room, is about an ESPN sports reporter around the decadent veil and whether they gave this black lady a job because she's black. I want to read this to you. They were objecting to a production edict from executives that they believed was issued to benefit a sideline reporter and fellow star Rachel Nichols, despite comments she had made suggesting that the host of NBA Countdown, Maria Taylor, had gotten that job because she is black, Nichols is white. A pre-show call with Taylor and other commentators, Jalen Rose, Wojnarowski, and Jay Williams, as well as NBA Countdown staff, had turned acrimonious, and Jimmy Portaro, ESPN's president, had several phone conversations while at family events trying to help smooth things over. Some of those involved saw the initial maneuvering as a sign of the network favoring Nichols, despite a backdrop of criticism from employees who complained that the sports network has long mishandled problems with racism. Of course they will. Do you not understand what comes out of this kind of wealth calcification and what the decadent veil's role is in the whole mechanism? No. See, part of it is they don't understand that black people don't have money because they're the little bit of black people. Look, let's frame it all. In America, half of black America combined, 10 million of the 20 million homes added together are worth negative $200 billion. What Bezos is worth. Understand, in America, only 350,000 black homes are worth more than $1 million too. These little NBA stars only know other people worth 10, 20, 30 million dollars. They were paid to basically make it harder to see this wealth calcification. It is a mechanism to not see everything that's going on so that we actually begin to do politics and demand true reparations and the multiple trillions of dollars for ADOS people. ESPN has been trying and often failing to deal with the scandal for months, but a fast approaching deadline is forcing the network to show at least some of its cards. Taylor's contract expires during the NBA Finals, which starts on Tuesday between Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks, yet few substantive steps have been taken toward a new deal, even though Portaro has identified Taylor as one of ESPN's rising stars. We saw this all happen with the other young lady, Carrie Champion, and it was racist there too. Then leveraged that to be able to get her a main spot in the nightly reporting, and I guess she still felt it was racist and left. For me, I mean, I don't know. Look, we live in a society where one white man took familial wealth and because of a failure of politics was able to grow that to a point where he alone is worth as much as, nearly as much I should say, as all blacks own in private business in America, including even black immigrants. So if it was, you took them out and you just looked at ADOS, you can only imagine what the number was. But we talking about all kind of other stuff. So we're talking about after 10-year controversy, Nikole Hannah-Jones will join Howard faculty instead of UNC. We had CNN, I'll talk about in a second. This is ballers and a power move and genius. We had a lot of talking about all of this, sucking the air out of the room. But then we just found out that Bezos is worth the same amount as black folks combined in terms of private business and then his wealth. But nobody put that together in a news story. We got to hear over and over again about Maria Taylor and Nikole Hannah-Jones. But we don't really put together that the journalism school is going to be funded by white charity, white philanthropy, and what the messaging as a result means in terms of black wealth and whether we've done the work to give that an outlet where we have black media. Less than a week after trustees at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill belatedly voted to grant tenure to New York Times reporter Nikole Hannah-Jones, Howard University announced Hannah-Jones will instead be joining its faculty. Howard, the prestigious black university in Washington, D.C., has also announced its hiring writer and Howard alumnus Ta-Nehisi Coates, author of Between the World and Me. Their positions were funded by $20 million in donations from Knight Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, and the Ford Foundation, as well as an anonymous donor. The funding establishes the Knight Chair in Race and Journalism, a tenured position to be held by Hannah-Jones. Hannah-Jones, who won a Pulitzer Prize for her 1619 project, will be established in the Center for Journalism and Democracy, which the university says will train aspiring journalists in the investigative skills and historical and analytical expertise needed to cover the crisis over our democracy is facing. Okay. Then we get the CNN article, What Nikole Hannah-Jones' Job Decision Reveals, by Peniel Joseph. Nikole Hannah-Jones' decision to take a teaching position at Howard reflects the enduring power, resonance, and importance of black institutions. Hannah-Jones, after a swirling controversy at the University of North Carolina, made national headlines, ended with the decision to award her tenure after all has decided to take her talents to one of the most prestigious black colleges and universities in America, not since LeBron James, the decision spectacle, has so much of the nation held its collective breath to see where a black genius might land. Come on, man. What is this man is writing? This is decadent veil nonsense in this moment. Again, I'm talking about the state of black wealth in America in context of it not existing and how that strangleholds black families across this nation. About 20 million of them. He's talking about Nikole Hannah-Jones and LeBron James being geniuses. Now, in a baller move, this is the baller move taken straight from the King's playbook, Hannah-Jones announced her decision on CBS This Morning with Gayle King and released a longer statement on it. Come on. Get this man up out of here. We got to understand, Amazon boss Jeff Bezos buys the Washington Post for $250 million. Part of the reason that you have to do a reparative justice movement isn't reparations just for the sake of cash, because you have to break this up. You have to have places where black media is black media. You also have to have black people creating the journalists of tomorrow, not just charity. And if it ain't gonna be black people with money, then it needs to be our tax dollars through our government. I need nobody that looks at another person that's wealthy and sees them as a benefactor, and as a result they don't speak. Period. And I'm not dealing with whether contractually you can speak or not. I'm just saying to you, we're not in a moment where you celebrate the wealthy. And I don't know if any group should celebrate the wealthy less than black folks. I told you the numbers. How many times I got to tell you? You got to understand that if white America has 115 trillion and only 23 trillion or so, I think, was in pensions, meaning 20%, that means that 80% ain't in that. It's in everything from liquid to durable stuff. That means that younger people likely have that wealth. People that are your contemporaries if you're 30 and 40. If black America only has 6.33, even though we have a quarter of the homes in number, and 40% of that is pension, you're living on crumbs in this moment. What we're doing is looking so hard to celebrate that we're forgetting the fact that it ain't the time to talk about no party. Empowerment politics works after you do politics, not before it. Amazon boss Jeff Bezos buys Washington Post for $250 million. The boss of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, has agreed to purchase the Washington Post newspaper for $250 million. This is 2013. You got Jeff Bezos, you got Zuckerberg, you got Bill Gates. They're giving this money away, but it comes out of a legacy of billionaire philanthropic giving that goes all the way back to the Industrial Revolution. And we look back to the Carnegies and the Fords, the very Ford that gave the money to start Nikole Hannah-Jones School. Billionaires, big givers, and the bets they make a timeline. 1890s to 1920s, the institutional wave endowed general purpose foundations with broad mandates and professional staff. 1936, Edsel and Henry Ford found the Ford Foundation with a broad mandate to advance human well-being. Now a social justice foundation active in advancing civil rights at home and human rights abroad, including working to end apartheid, and diverse portfolio had a singular focus on addressing inequality of wealth. So you're going to have a charitable foundation address inequality of wealth. And during the life of this foundation, we've had some of the largest growth in wealth in the history of mankind. But you know who else is on this same list? 2020, Jeff Bezos. 2020, Jeff Bezos, the world's richest man, announces the Bezos Earth Fund, a grant-making initiative to combat climate change. Earlier giving was focused on homelessness in the Seattle area. Oh, man. These people pay their taxes. We ain't got to do no funds, because then we have enough money for HBCUs to have endowments that are the size of Harvard's. You got to realize that right now what's happening is for us to have these celebratory moments, somebody got to pay. And because we don't have no black wealth, it can't be a black person. But then when it happens, we celebrate it as if it was a black person funding it. But we do it because of party on, party on. We got the guy that runs the Ford Foundation named Darren Walker, I believe. We don't need to demonize wealthy people. Ford Foundation President Darren Walker on the unnerving aftermath of the Warren Candor protests. These are one-dimensional ideas. I'm simply saying that you can have both and that you should have both. It would be a grave error to demonize wealthy people. Now, I'm not necessarily saying we should demonize them, but I definitely don't think we should laud them. And I don't think we should celebrate them at this moment. And no group should celebrate them less than black folk. You can celebrate them if you want to, but your kids will be driving Uber as a result. You can celebrate them if you want to, but you'll never understand the context of why your relationships are failing because they lack the stable economic post to actually stand on. You can celebrate wealthy people if you want to and not understand it is no baller move to take charitable money from white people and start a journalism school. It's actually just a marker that black folks better get on their horse and do some politics. We got an article to end on the trouble with charitable billionaires. I recommend you go read it. I believe it's from The Guardian. It'll frame everything that I'm saying, but just sharing the section. In February 2017, Facebook founder, CEO Mark Zuckerberg was in the headlines for charitable activities. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, founded by the tech billionaire and his wife, Priscilla Chan, handed over $3 million in grants to aid the housing crisis in the Silicon Valley. David Plouffe, the initiative's president and policy and advocacy, stated that the grants were intended to support those working to help families in immediate crisis while supporting research. Ironically, the boom in the tech industry moving down in this region, a boom Facebook has been at the forefront of, has been a major contributor to the crisis. As Peter Cohen from the Council of Community Housing Organization explained, when you're dealing with this total concentration of wealth and this absurd slosh of real estate money, you're not dealing with housing that's serving growing population. You're dealing with housing as a real estate commodity for speculation. Zuckerberg's apparent generosity, it would seem, is a small contributor to a large problem that was created by the success of the industry he is involved in. In one sense, the housing grants are trying to put a sticking plaster on a problem that Facebook and other Bay Area corporations aided and abetted. It's easy to think of Zuckerberg as some kind of CEO hero, a once regular kid whose genius made him one of the richest men in the world and who decided to use that wealth for the benefit of others. The image he projects of altruism untainted by self-interest, a quick scratch of the surface, reveals that the structure of Zuckerberg's charity enterprise is informed by much more than good-hearted altruism. Even while many have applauded Zuckerberg for his generosity, the nature of this apparent charity was openly questioned from the outset. The creation of the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, decidedly not a charity organization, means that Zuckerberg can control the company's investment as he sees fit. The reliance on billionaire business people's charity to support public projects is a part of what has been called philanthrocapitalism. This resolves the apparent antinomy between charity and capitalism. As historian Nikole explains, philanthrocapitalism rests on the claim that capitalist mechanisms are superior to all others when it comes to not only creating economic but human progress, and that the market and market actors are or should be made the prime creators of the goods of society. The golden age of philanthropy is not just about benefits that accrue to individual givers. More broadly, philanthropy serves to legitimize capitalism, as well as to extend it further and further into all domains of social, cultural, and political activity. Philanthrocapitalism is about much more than the simple act of generosity. It pretends to be, instead of involving the inoculation of neoliberal values personified by the billionaire CEOs who have led its charge. Philanthropy is recast in the same terms in which the CEO would consider a business venture. Charitable giving is translated into a business model that employs market-based solutions characterized by efficiency and quantified cost and benefits. Philanthrocapitalism takes the application of management discourses and practices from business corporation and adapts them to charitable work. So when we look at the tie-in between these things, we have Jeff Bezos now worth $211 billion, while the Federal Reserve shows on a chart that all of Black America has $270 billion with a B in private business. And at the same time, when we need to be talking about having a national discussion about this guy who owns all of that wealth and also white America below him. Again, 30% of white America above $600,000 in net worth, only 5% of Black America above $350,000. And we only have 20 million homes. Again, while we need to be talking about Bezos and that, we're celebrating this empowerment move that is built out of some of the mechanisms, the tools that we're talking about with philanthrocapitalism. We're celebrating a moment that we didn't create with politics, that we created with charity. And I feel like if Black America doesn't realize it, the numbers will make you realize it sooner than later. This is Tone Talks. Please go to tonetalks.org to subscribe or donate. Share this video. Please watch the last video because it'll give a lot more context into the gap between Black folks and white folks in terms of wealth in America. Thank you.